Comic-Con 2004. Like every year, Comic-Con was held at the convention center in downtown San Diego. And boy, it was big. Really, really big. Over the entire 4 days, there were over 87,000 visitors to the convention. And whether you like comics, science fiction, fantasy, or anime, Comic-Con was just the place to be. And then on Saturday, the 24th of July, we were lucky enough to witness the panel FarScape, the Peacekeeper Wars. That panel drew a crowd just as large as the Smallville panel that had been held in exactly the same room and just before the FarScape panel. And we're talking the ballroom of the convention center here. That place holds over 5,000 people, and it was almost full. Okay, before we launch into the actual panel, let me introduce the panelists. From the left, we start with David Kemper, who was the executive producer and also writer. Then next to him is Rockne Bannon, the series creator and executive producer. Next comes Mr. Brian Henson, who is director and producer and also the co-chairman of the Jim Henson Company. On his side is Claudia Black, the actress who plays Erin Sun. And next to her is Ben Browder, who is an actor and writer and also plays John Crichton on FarScape. And last but not least, we have Tom Vitale, who's the Senior VP of Acquisition, Scheduling and Programming at the Sci-Fi Channel. Sponsored by the Sci-Fi Channel, these six came together to talk about the new mini-series called FarScape, the Peacekeeper Wars, which will air on the Sci-Fi Channel on the 17th and 18th of October. And although they didn't really tell the audience much about the miniseries itself, they certainly managed to pass on their own energy and excitement about it. I'm Tyrio for farmnews.org. Please enjoy and spread the excitement.
Brian has something that he wants to show you today, a clip. It's a Muppet clip. Real quick about the miniseries is you'll ask us questions and we'll say, well, we can't really tell you that. Just say that there was always a 5th season in mind, and we all knew what it was, including Thomas had approved it. And it didn't happen. And what we did is we took that as the seed. We knew we wanted to end this chapter, only this chapter in FarScape. And the miniseries does that in our traditional way. So expect it's big, it's good, you'll see some of it.
And it ends with to be continued, right?
And I would just say this, I would say I wouldn't watch it alone. I wouldn't watch it alone if you want to lock up the knives and things like that.
This audience question was directed at Tom Vitale. Will the Sci-Fi Channel actually help promote the miniseries?
NBC TV, so now that we're owned by a bigger company, there's cross-channel opportunities where we can have advertising on different NBC-owned cable networks. There'll be a lot online, some guerrilla marketing. So we've got a lot of big plans that we're just starting to get into motion now. We want this to be a huge rating, we really do.
This audience member wanted to ask Claudia Black about her reaction to a collective phone call which had been made by Ben Browder during the Comic-Con panel in 2003. But he gets off to a really bad start.
Last year, I called you while I was doing this.
See, I thought you didn't call. I waited and I cried. And I called Ben and I said he never called. Say that again.
We're back on their website.
You were I waited for that? That's what you were going to tell me on the phone call?
It's Ben's phone. I borrowed Ben's phone. Well, everybody borrowed Ben's phone. Last year.
Oh, that is the best thing ever, and I've still got it on my message machine. Thank you to everyone. just great, so thank you very much.
This audience question was regarding Ben Browder's appearance on CSI Miami.
Whose idea was it that one of the other characters on that episode was named DJ Scorpius?
They didn't even know. The writer didn't know. He thought he had created something new and cool. When I got there, I thought, oh wow, they must know the show. Somebody in the writing room must have watched FarScape. And this is on CSI Miami. No. The writer didn't have a clue. Although, as a side note to that, Narain Shankar, who is a staff member in season 2, is now running CSI. So if you guys want to get on the phone and make some calls over to CSI, tell them that Claude and I are looking for work. We know they don't pay that much, but
They just fired 2 actors. They just fired 2 people. Oh, they're actors.
So we're looking for opportunities, so you can get on to Shankar about that.
Let me jump in real quick and bring in Mr. Henson, who has brought us something to watch. So Brian, why don't you
I realize this is hard because we're not telling you much of anything about the miniseries.
That's okay.
So, no, well, we're going to tell you a little bit more than anyone else in the world knows. If we're ready to show this is
can the lights come down?
This is a trailer for the miniseries that we've just done out of Australia. It doesn't have a lot of the visual effects and stuff, but it's pretty cool and gives you a pretty good idea of what we've been up to for the last year.
At this point, we saw a 90-second trailer, which is copyright protected, so we can't show it here, but it's now available for viewing at www.apple.com/trailers.
That's the stuff we didn't use. That's all just on the cutting room floor. Bits left over.
After watching the trailer, a somewhat upset audience member wanted to know how anybody could possibly cancel FarScape for reality TV.
You're looking at the largest, probably most expensive miniseries that television has to offer right now. You're getting what you wanted. The only reason you could get that is with the Sci-Fi Channel. If we weren't on the Sci-Fi Channel from the first day, we would have been canceled on a regular network by episode 7. There was nothing wrong with the cancellation. It's how things go. FarScape's back, and it's not over with. So there's a reason that we're all up on the panel, including Thomas, because we're going forward. So it did not get canceled.
90-second trailer, which is copyright protected, so we can't show it here, but it's now available for viewing at www.apple.com/trailers.
I like the employed part.
It's really a matter of how this miniseries, like anything, it's a matter of ratings, how it does, how many people are watching, how many people you get to watch the miniseries, and like anything, it's all open in the future. Anything can happen. Network business is sort of a crazy business. Anything can happen.
Well, and having killed off Crichton and Aaron at the end of the miniseries, there are other directions to go. No, I mean for real this time. For real. No coming back.
This question was directed at Claudia Black. Will we get to see Erin Pound Grazer for what she did to John on a NASC?
I've been wondering about what happened with Crichton and all his little, rendezvous with women on different planets. While Aaron was lying there with broken leg or dying and needing surgery or,
You can't answer that question.
I can't answer that question, but it's a great one.
Wait, we can answer it a little bit. We can say, you might not be disappointed. Possibly.
How hard was it to do the miniseries given that FarScape had been out of production for over a year?
The truth is we kind of had to rebuild everything. In terms of logistically, we had to rebuild all of the sets almost from scratch. We like we were saying, this miniseries is bigger in every way than FarScape was. We were trying to make it better in every way, if possible. And the sets, we had to take the sets down when we finished the series. So we did have to pretty much start over and rebuild everything. That should have been difficult, but everybody that we wanted to come back made themselves available. There's a lot of producers in Australia and England that hate us because we poached all of their key creative people because everybody wanted to come back. We basically got Ricky Ayers back, who was the production designer from season 1 from England. He came back down.
Well, I had a comment for Claudia and a question for Ben. Claudia, looking forward to seeing you on SG1. They were talking about you.
Oh, were they?
Yes, Michael Shanks was talking about you, nothing but good things to say. And my second...
He's a good actor then.
Yeah. My question is, I know that Ben had written and directed an episode, and how was that? And do you plan on continuing to do that on other series, or do you want to just stick with that?
I never directed on FarScape. There was no time in my schedule to do that. The writing was accomplished in the middle of the night. I'm actually writing right now. I'm rewriting a script for a film group, so I'm still writing, and I hope to continue doing it. It would be great if actually I had the chance to write for this woman again. They should speak very highly of her at Stargate about her. I actually spoke with Shanks last night, and I went, she's good, isn't she? She's good. And he went, oh yeah, she's amazing.
I was committing a mortal sin when I had to go on and work with another male actor. I rang Ben from Canada and said, I'm really, really sorry, but I've got another leading man for 3 days. I'm so sorry.
I talked to the Stargate people, and they said, well, maybe you ought to come up and do something. You could play Shanks' evil twin. I said, you got to make it worth my while. If I'm coming up there, then I basically got to be kicking his ass for 3 whole episodes.
Yeah, which is pretty much what I did. Thank you.
Yeah, quick things. First of all, there will be a blooper release on the American version of the DVDs, and then a question for Ben and Claudia. Do you ever worry about being typecast as John and Aaron? Can you ever get tired of playing a character, or if it's written, that's not a problem? Written well.
I never got tired of playing John Crichton. It's the longest I've ever played any part of my life, and up to the very last day of shooting, there was no way to get tired of playing that character or playing with the people that I was playing with.
In a professional context. And in terms of being typecast, it depends on the people that you're playing with. No, it's really rare. There is only once in a lifetime a character will come up, and if it falls into your hands as an actor, it's a blessing. And Erin, from the minute I read what was the pilot, and it was Space Chase, I knew that she was the coolest thing in town. So nothing really will come close to her. Typecast as what? I don't know. I can't really get typecast as Erin ever again because she's a 1 in a trillion. So. Playing tough chicks in space who don't seem very happy, that potentially could be a bit of a problem. Beating people up all the time, maybe something Buddhist or,
Rigel's going to have a pisser of a career outside of FarScape.
Isn't he doing Richard III in the West End?
He was too expensive.
No questions.
For saying that, but one thing that I know people have read that I've said this, but I'm going to say it again. There is absolutely no way that FarScape would have been continuing without the work of the fans of FarScape to try and keep it alive. And that genuinely is true. This miniseries was independently financed, and those financiers found out about the show and about the possibility of it continuing through the efforts of the fans, and they were introduced to me by the fans. So we would not be sitting here and we would not have made this miniseries, and FarScape would not be continuing if it wasn't for everything that you've done. So thank you for what you've done.
All that being said, the six of us are actually looking to have someone independently finance a vacation for us. Just a thought in your head.
This question was about the creative process on FarScape. How did the writers go about fitting what was planned for the 5th season into the miniseries?
I will tell you of a day that I was sitting on the floor in front of my fireplace. Rock was on the couch, Brian was on the couch, Ricky Manning was on the couch, Ben was on the couch, and we were all staring.
It's a big couch.
It holds a lot of people. And we were all staring at the board, and we had a constant influx of, it wasn't just Rock and I, we were charged with the, distilling things down, but whenever we would get to a point, we brought in the people that knew FarScape better than anyone and said, what do you think? What do you like? And so we had input from a number of people, that kind of a focus group, if you will, and you don't get Ricky and Ben and Claudia and Brian in a room and not get good ideas that end up in the miniseries. And that continued all the way through to the stage floor when Brian was directing.
And also something that's always been true with FarScape, which actually comes about from working at an over-ambitious pace. FarScape was always made very, very quickly. And although it's expensive, it's not expensive for how big a show it is. And the result is, scenes would be written and they would go on set and you couldn't actually shoot that scene, is often what would happen realistically, because there were prop issues or cast issues and couldn't get the calls to work out. So there's an enormous amount of inventing that's constantly going on FarScape.
This audience question was regarding Ben Browder's wardrobe in the miniseries. Will you be wearing anything from Frederick's in Hollywood? And as a side note, Frederick's is famous for being frequented by the gay and cross-dressing communities.
Anth had some interesting comments about your choice of wardrobe and scratch and sniff. Will you be wearing anything from Frederick's or Hollywood in the
You're asking if I'm wearing fishnet stockings on the show or now?
Anthony's already told us about your all powers.
When we went back, the scariest thing of going back was actually dusting off the leather trousers and going, am I going to be able to fit in these damn things? That's a spooky moment, man. You're thinking, I don't know, I've been sitting around for a year. I have to say that there was a question that was asked earlier that I didn't address, which was what it was like to go back. And what it was like to step back into the show. Was it difficult? Was it hard? FarScape was always difficult. Say that? Yeah. And what Brian described as the process of saying 150 people that are also on the couch with us, that big couch that's FarScape, that was always the case. And going back after over a year of being away from Australia and coming back in was the most amazing reunion that I could possibly have ever hoped for. When I left Australia, I was in tears when I said goodbye to the cast and crew. And I get misty thinking about it now because, it is one of these communal processes of which you guys are a part of. The one thing that we were always aware of while we were shooting it was we're making it for an audience. We're making it for a smart audience. We want to take our audience with us on this journey. And without you, and without the 120 people, and without the dusty old leather trousers that they pulled out of the wardrobe and made me step back in, I wouldn't be sitting here today, and I wouldn't be a very happily semi-employed actor.
I have a question for you before you go. You were at the 1999 Comic-Con when I first appeared with David, is that right? I have something for you. Are you allowed to come down to the stage?
How many people were here? Rock, Claudia, and I were here in '99. How many people? All right, just open your minds and remember.
At the end, I think we'd run out of things to talk about, which surprises the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I referred to, I think, my first ever online chat, where someone asked me the question, do you have any pets? And I said no, and the answer came back, do you want one? And my answer was, well, it depends what you look like in a dog collar. So I brought this to the 1999 Comic-Con. David put it on me, and if you'd like the memento.
This question was directed at Claudia Black. What is the most important experience you made on FarScape?
What I will take with me from FarScape is the fact that, and I think it comes from David and a lot of the people who created the show from the beginning, it was about, Brian wanted to make a show that was an excellent showcase and an opportunity for the world to see what the Henson Company can do with their makeups and their creatures. David would come up with these ideas that to most production managers in Australia seemed insane. And they were
insane!
But...
Oh wait, I got a really great idea. No, you can do this.
We were working in an environment where imagination was required. It was encouraged, and it became an incredibly collaborative environment. What I will take is just, when people would say, David, we can't do this, he would say, why not? And if it's not about money, if it's about creatively finding ways to spend your money, to make it happen, to tell the story, to do something that hasn't been done before, as Ben said, we knew we were making it for an intelligent audience, and to constantly try and surprise you guys on a weekly basis, that's tough. And so it really pushed me to limits I didn't, to cross boundaries I didn't know were there in the first place as an actor. So I've learned so much.
Another question about the miniseries. How much of what was planned for the 5th season will be in the miniseries?
David had this template for season 5, which we thought, this is great, we got 4 hours, we can, we've got this giant template, much larger than we normally would have. And then as we went on and started to plot and figured all the characters we had and all the things we wanted to do with the family of characters that have been set up to that stage, we suddenly were, we were running out of page count. So it was daunting. Yeah, it was daunting, but it just made the 4 hours that much more, to use the Australian phrase, chock-a-block. It hits the ground running and keeps running.
Chock-a-block, I'm proud of you, Rock.
I just didn't tell the story. I couldn't help. We wrote a very long script. I just have to tell the story on Brian for 1 second. We were very concerned with security. You guys probably don't know this. We have obsessive fans. And if our fans... Well, first of all, let's just say that Claudia's car got broken into before we shot, and her purse was stolen. What was in the purse, Claudia?
The miniseries scripts.
So I got a phone call at midnight, and I'm freaking out, and it didn't surface. But anyways, Brian had this idea that we used for security, and Rock and I finished the first draft of the script. It was huge, and a package shows up at each of our houses, and Rock calls me at midnight and goes, "Did you get the package?" Brian had printed the whole script on red paper, like fire engine red paper, with black print, with numbers across each page, with our names on each page, so if the script got copied, we could trace it back to where it was. And Rock called me and said, "I can't read it." And I said, "I can't read it either." And Ben couldn't read it. We couldn't read the script, so 150...
Best script I ever read.
Couldn't read the script. We couldn't read it. And everybody secretly said, "We're going to just copy it on white." And everyone said, "You can't." Well, we copied it on white, and Brian had a red script, so everyone else is sneaking these white scripts through. And Brian's going like this, "I think this is Claudia." So what will happen is...
We printed them in white right after that.
These
but we always kept them watermarked.
These scripts will be collected.
Never got a white script.
They may be made available to you in the future when we're out of work long enough. Look for these scripts.
Also, by the way, my car wasn't just broken into and a bag was stolen. I was sitting in the car driving it at the time when someone opened the door and took the bag. So, yeah, I tell it a little bit more dramatically. I say I got carjacked, and then people go, oh my God, you got pulled out of the car. And I say, no, but they took stuff on the car. I was singing along to my favourite song at the time. The worst street corner in Sydney, and just suddenly heard the car door open, and
the guy didn't look like Michael Shanks, did he?
I heard. And I wasn't worried. I was moving apartments because I'd been staying in a friend's place, and I didn't know when I came to Sydney that I was going to be doing the miniseries. I thought I was just going there for a trip for a couple of months. So we were moving apartments at the end of, I think, like a 60 or 80-hour week just before Christmas. And the only thing I was worried about, the car was full of things, my jewellery, all this stuff, and the only thing I was nervous about was the script. And I'd seen this episode, it's funny how things sort of come out of you when you're tested, and I'd seen an episode of Oprah one day, I think in the trailer, where they were talking about self-defense for women. And Oprah said, oh, I've heard that what you have to do is get your voice down really, really low and primal and sort of go, no. And people have always told me that I'm quintessentially evil, that I'm the devil, and it was sort of case in point, because when the car door opens and I realise that this person's taking the script, I went, oh, I can't say it's a rude word. Okay, I went, no, throw off. And the poor guy just went, ran off to the hills. I felt very, very sorry for him. Bless him. And when I rang the police, they actually had heard of FarScape, because I said, I've just been robbed. I rang the production office and said, I'm really sorry, the script's gone, it's gone. And they said, what are you talking about? And I said, I've just been, robbed while I was in the car at the lights. I'm so sorry. And they were like, it's okay, calm down. I said, oh my God, Andrew and Brian and everyone are going to kill me. I was so worried about it for like a 3-year-old who'd sort of done something very naughty. And when I rang the police and made the report, she said, what's been stolen? I said, a bag with some scripts in it. And she said, what do you mean? And I said, oh, I'm an actor and I'm working on a show, and it's the script for the miniseries was in my bag. And she said, okay, well, what's the show? And I said, it's FarScape. And she said, oh, Miss Black, we better make sure that nobody finds it and put spoilers on the internet.
The last laugh is on the thief, because if he tried to read the red script, he's blind somewhere. And he never got past the first page.
This question was directed at Ben Browder. What was your favorite thing on FarScape?
Hope. It's my favorite word from the series, hope.
And leather pants.
Hope and leather.
Ben in leather pants is the best thing about my character, definitely.
We tried to shrink those pants for you, but it didn't work.
They do that, Sometimes if an actress ticks off a wardrobe department badly enough, they will deliberately shrink your costume overnight so that you think you've got really fat. That's like one of the oldest tricks in the book. It's fantastic.
We couldn't remember the exact phrasing of this question, but it was regarding the conception of Scorpius as a character.
Price's second in command, kind of his evil Mr. Spock, and Scorpius was originally going to be kind of a bird-like creature, and Brian said, let's do kind of stork-like backwards legs. And then when we were developing, after the pilot script, we were developing the characters that had to kind of pare down and kept Scorpius off for a bit. So when it came time for Namtar in episode 9 of the first season, we went right to that backwards leg thing.
And in response to Rockne O'Bannon's talking about Scorpius and Namtar, Claudia Black starts to elaborate on how difficult it was to make FarScape, especially for those in prosthetic makeup.
Those features heavily in the miniseries. The detail of her costume, the platforms, I don't know if you realise, but she was wearing platforms, that's not an exaggeration, is it? They're about, 10 inches? I don't know, boys always lie, so I don't know. I wonder I can ever park my car.
God, that's
10 inches is right.
Francesca, I had to do on Stargate. I was wearing this neoprene cat suit, and everyone, and all this other stuff, and everyone from wardrobe was so apologetic because it was very hot and whatever. And they actually
neoprene cat suit? Okay.
Yeah, dream on, white boy. And everyone was very apologetic, and I said, you should see what these guys have to go through. And I was thinking about Fran specifically, and I told her about it. What she had to do with full contacts, full makeup, leather and latex.
10 inches heels.
10-inch heels, never missed a mark, never missed a line. I mean, these people were extraordinary, and we didn't have the time. If we had to, we'd go for another take. But the fact that the performances of all these people in the creature, makeups and costumes, is as good as they are, is testament to what they are like as performers. Because on FarScape, you don't want to be doing a second take if you can avoid it.
Well, it's so complicated. Yeah, most of the shots are probably done in one or two takes, and often with several cameras. We had a call sheet at one point that we looked at. This was sometime in January where we all thought we were going to just drop dead any minute. And the call sheet had 60 people in prosthetic makeup on it with an 8 a.m. with an 8 a.m. call.
60, which means they're in there at 2 in the morning.
And it's extraordinary how big it gets and how crazy it is. And it's true. Just getting everything in front of the camera at the same time is a feat. And then every actor in every costume or whatever they're wearing has to get it right, because you really have one or two shots at it before everything starts to fall apart again.
Without climate control, I mean, we had these big ducts that we brought in to sort of feed cold air, and so you'd see all these half-dressed Scarons with boxer shorts and all their top up, trying to cool themselves down. They had cooling suits, like the astronaut suits, sort of pipes that went round underneath their costumes to run cold water through them, which is great for you to do it all the time.
And Anthony Simcoe, well, you guys know. He hates being in the costume. So generally Dargo is walking around with that big Dargo head, and then he's completely naked but a pair of like polka dotted boxer shorts like sandals. And that's the way he walks around all day long.
It is such a scary sight to see him in the lunchroom with Dargo's head, and then
I'd see him like that and I would say, are you working today? You never got the job.
Here an audience member comments on how different Claudia is from her character Erin, in contrast to Virginia Hay, who is very similar to her character Zan. A bit carelessly, he also states that he's not actually a fan of the show, and that's something David Kemper will not just let go.
I'd just like to say that you said you're not a fan?
I don't consider myself a fan of anything.
I'm up here and I have my opinion. You watch the show, you met Virginia, you're in a room with 3,000 people. You're standing at a microphone, you know the characters, you've analyzed the parts, you're a fan.
Are you actually on a first date? You're trying to look cool, aren't you? You know, I'm not a fan, but I saw that there were some people in a room and there was a microphone, and I've got a great low voice, and I thought...
I have a different definition of fanaticism.
Yeah.
And what I do is I appreciate your show and I love it without being overly crazy about it.
Do you want to give us some notes on this?
I have to tell you then, you want to move a little back away. From the people in the front here, you'd be safer 3 or 4 rows back.
It's because I don't see you as movie stars or TV personalities, because I know people in real life that act exactly like every character on your show. So I'm familiar with you.
All right, look, I'm with this guy. I'm with this guy.
Me too.
I've always hesitated to use the word fan. I mean, and hesitate to use it in terms of FarScape audience. When I talk about, and we use the term generically at fans, but when I think about the people who watch the show, I'm thinking about an audience. I'm thinking about a story being told to an audience, and the audience is that last critical link in the storytelling process. It's a communal process. And what's interesting with our situation is how our audience gives back to us. And you know, I understand why you don't use that thing. You go, you know, you're just this, you're just that, which you're exactly right.
Well, I think
and in the same way that as I look out in the room, I didn't think this is our audience. These are the people that give me a job. These are the people who employ me. This is the people I'm trying to tell something to, or that we're trying to tell something to. So I take your point about the use of the word fan, but David can disagree if he wants to.
But I am a star.
It is true that most of us do worship at the altar of Claudius.
And just very briefly, a couple more mic crops at your time.
My question actually is for David and Rock and Mr. Henson. Commenting on what
you can call him Brian. It's okay.
Okay, right. Commenting on what the gentleman before me said, one of the things that I really noted about FarScape, and one of the things that really caught me about it was, here was a TV show that, oh my God, gave forth the idea that you could have alien characters, not just alien monsters, but alien characters who were aliens more in the fact of, oh look, they've got pointy ears or funny eyebrows. Do you think that more of science fiction television might catch on to that idea?
I heard there's a channel for it.
No, I mean specifically, yeah, I've seen some of the aliens on that channel.
They're good aliens. They're alien. If one of them walked into your bedroom, you would just die.
Well, a huge part of the alienness of the show was obviously more part of it from the beginning, but gentleman who took the reins of sci-fi right during before we aired, as we were really developing the pilot, the first scripts, was Stephen Chow. And I think Stephen wasn't the one who bought the show, but he was the one who now had inherited it in 22 episodes. And I think I would have meetings with him, and his whole thing was, I want this show to be as out there and alien as possible. I don't want aliens that have human qualities. So Dave and I would listen to this, and we'd look at each other and go, he's asking for us to be as odd and out there as we could possibly be. And we just obviously ran with that to the degree that we could.
So we have the creature shop. Sitting there.
Also with our company, that's just always been what the Jim Henson Company does. What I think we sort of say at the creature shop, we don't really just do creatures. And in fact, when people come to us and say, will you do us a werewolf, I'll say, is he funny? And if he's not, and if all he does is roar or something like that, we probably wouldn't do it. For us, I think what's always been exciting, and it goes all the way back to the Muppets, is creating characters where you can create a character that you feel like you know that character, you've lived with that character, you really can relate to that character, and yet it's something, it looks so entirely different. It's some creature, or it's some Muppet, or whatever it is. That's part of what we believe opens up the audience's minds when they're watching, and that's what's fun. So it really juices us to be able to create personalities and characters with our creatures.
I will add to that and say, Pilot is the coolest alien critter I have ever seen.
Okay, we have time for about 2 more questions if you guys want to see the trailer
Now,
again.
anybody that's actually leaving, make sure you tell the folks outside we're going to show the clip at the end. So you can bring them back in.
Yeah, right.
We're over here.
Ben, fix your hair.
Yeah, thank you. That's better.
Okay,
I've seen people do that on set. I just thought I'd copy it.
I would like to know what the exact definition of the word Frel is.
This is the man that created it right here.
Consider it in context.
Let's just say that it's a word that starts with F, ends in UCK, and it's not fire truck.
Seriously? that's not what Rock wanted it to be. That's just your interpretation. I've never heard of that.
Is it Pharrell me from you?
Yeah, I guess so. Maybe. It does work. Over here.
Hi, first off, great show. Second off, I want to know how you guys feel about the character of Scorpius. I happen to feel that he's probably the best nemesis created for the silver screen. One of the most interesting characters you guys can play off of. And how does Ben view John playing off of Scorpius and Claudia as well? Especially Harvey, because I really love that interaction.
Well, Harvey's not Scorpius, so I'll say.
Right, of course.
Yeah, well, look, I'm playing with Wayne Pygram, who walked on the first day and scared the hell out of the crew. Everyone immediately was repulsed and backed away from him, and I've been embracing him ever since. As far as the character of Scorpius, and we'll set Harvey aside for the moment because I love Harvey. I think, you're probably better served talking to Mr. Kemper or Mr. O'Bannon about the creation of that character and how they developed it.
Yeah, well, as I mentioned before, Scorpius was originally going to be Crace's evil Mr. Spock. The thought was that, going back to the original Star Trek, Spock was arguably smarter than Kirk and potentially more qualified to be captain. And I always thought it would be funny or interesting if you took that dynamic and gave it to the villain side and had a character who was second in command, in our case to Captain Crace, but someone who you never quite knew what his agenda was. And as I said, we had to cleave off some characters early on. And then as we got toward the latter part of the first season, we wanted to take Captain Crace in another direction after bringing him on board Moya. We thought this was a perfect opportunity to bring Scorpius on board. The original design for Scorpius was an animatronic head, very much like Namtar. And we just said, no, we want something an actor that you could see perform. So we designed the look of Scorpius, and he just, again, as Wayne took on that character, it just took on life of his own.
Yeah, and the one thing, and real quick, do we have any questions after this, or how many can we do?
Actually, we're getting ready to show the video, so...
Okay, well then, the last answer on this is, we watched Wayne play Scorpius, and then there was, Justin Mongeau wrote in Crackers Don't Matter, Scorpius, a hallucination for Crichton in a Hawaiian shirt. And we realized that we could have a Mambo shirt, actually. We realized that we could have him in the show if he was part of Crichton's head, so we went back and we retooled things and we fixed things to create that storyline so that we could utilize this tremendous actor's talent.
To understand the next bit, you need a bit of a background story. At the beginning of the panel, David Kemper joked that if everyone present at the panel, if they would donate just $10, they could go and finance another miniseries. And in return, a number of scapers jumped up, waving $10 bills, and two of them even walked up front and handed the money to him. Oh, and Rockne O'Bannon decided to pitch in $1 too.
First of all, there's $21 here. Does somebody in the front row have a charity that they will make sure they get this $21 to? Is there somebody here that we can trust with that, or I'll do it myself? Nobody's getting up. I will do it. You'll get it? Well, we've got a clip.
Let's play the clip again, then we'll say goodbye. We'll come back.
At this point, we saw the trailer again, and as mentioned before, you can view it yourself at www.apple.com/trailers.